Welcome. We'll get started. And we've just been getting some course data from the registrar, and I'm happy to report. Kate tells me there are 61.3 students in this course.
613, Brian.
Oh, but wasn't there a decimal?
No, not with people.
Okay.
You don't have decimal people.
No decimal points with people. 613, and that means that we're able to add 2 more sections.
So if any of you is in a particularly large section, so you'd like to switch to a smaller section, or if one of these times is more convenient for you, they're listed here on the board. Wednesday 2 to 3 or Tuesday 4 to 5. Then you can either come down after class and sign up for one of the 2 new sections, or you can email this address for this time and this address for this time, and we'll put you in the new sections.
We're doing this to try to even out the number of people in each section so that no discussion section will have more than 59 students, and hopefully even less than that. It's a pleasure to introduce today's guest, Choying Drolma. And as we've read, she entered a Buddhist order at the age of 13. She has been an international performing artist as a singer since 1998, and she's managed to connect audiences around the world with the situation of Tibetan refugees, many of whom have come to Nepal, where she lives, fleeing the oppression in Tibet. She's used all of the earnings from her successful concerts around the world to start the Arya school, Arya Tatara school, in the year 2000, and that school has addressed inequalities of gender and resources in Kathmandu. She's someone who integrates the secular education offered to women at this school with a serious depth of Buddhist spiritual practice. And as this is a course in the study of religion, that element is of interest to us as well. So please join me in welcoming Choying Drolma.
Tashidale and namaste and good afternoon.
And Kate Holbrook will start us off with a question.
I wonder whether you'd give us a flavor of what you do by starting us off with a song.
It's my pleasure. But I've been lazy person, so may I please sit and then say. Mama ranem zeven dayeso oy mane peme onje o ma bezer guru be maise oy ma bezer guru be ma tenjenzo Bezer sama yan zai sedim palai. Om Buddha zida ma su kan jana da do. Om relo enjoy. Om bezer sado. Om mama ranen zeven da yeso. Om manen peme honge. Om aham bezer gurum pema sende. Om aham bezer gurum pema tenjenzo. Bezer sama yan zai sedim palai. Om Buddha zida ma su kan jana da do. Om relo enjoy. Om bezer sado. Thank you.
And now we have a question from Sam Quinn.
Hi, thanks for coming. In Kate Botham's article, she writes that you left home at a young age to join a Tibetan Buddhist nunnery. What gave you the courage to make such a momentous decision, especially at such a young age?
First of all, I would like to say that I feel really, really privileged to be here among a lot of very intelligent, smart people from Harvard. So I would like to really thank Brian Palmer and Kate Holberg, and of course my very dear friend Kate Botham for having me here and thinking that there's something that I could share with all of you here. So thank you very much. And the courage, I don't know if it was a real courage or not, but for me to join the nunnery, to become a nun, was very much due to the circumstances or the situation that I was going through at that age, which was as being a very, coming from a very middle class Tibetan family in Asia, where the daughters in the family are always expected to do all the housework and take care of younger brothers, and so those were not really actually the problem, but the real problem was for me to see my mother suffering so much under a very abusive and aggressive husband, who was my father. So as I loved my mother so much those days, I always wanted to do something to make her happy. So every time I see her crying, it used to really make me feel go through a lot of pain. And I would always try to do something to help her out and to make her happy, which would be most of the time, of course, taking care of my two younger brothers and cooking and cleaning, doing all the household work, but still it wasn't enough. And most of the time I used to feel so helpless, so miserable, not being able to make my mother happy whenever she cries. So that feeling was so much really bad experience for me. And above that, I felt like, as my father being the first man in my life, the whole impression was as if the men were the worst creature in the world at those times. So I felt like getting married was something really the worst thing to do. And then I couldn't imagine a better example of a man, beside my father. So I myself felt that I didn't want it to get married. And also I used to quite beaten up by my father also. So the whole experience, myself getting beaten up or having to do all the houseworks wasn't really the main problem. The problem for me was to see my mom suffering so much. And I was starting to imagine my own life in the future as getting married and having a husband like my father and having to go through the whole thing as I could see my mother going. So that was something that I really didn't want it to go through. So that was the main cause of myself taking the decision to become a nun. But after joining the nunnery, I get to see a whole another example of a man where I felt who was totally opposite of my father's character. So, and at nunnery, I really got to learn that, okay, everybody's not same.
Yeah. Leanne Gaffney.
Hello. Nowadays, in the United States at least, religious vocations are often overlooked. What would you say to those who are considering a religious life, and what, in your opinion, are the sacrifices and benefits of being a religious person in today's society? Thank you.
Well, religion itself, for instance, I can talk about Buddhist religion. I mean, I don't know if I would call it a religion or not. I understand it more of an education than a religion, religiously categorized. When it gets into the more of a cultural thing, then maybe you give an identity of a religion for that. But when fundamentally, maybe all the religion really shares the common ground, which of course it says develop loving kindness, compassion, love each other, help each other, and never harm anybody. But when it becomes a culture which is made by human, even though the basic principles are based on the religion or the Buddhist teachings, it comes from a human. We human actually have all these qualities of, humans are not perfect, so we're never able to create a perfect culture. So maybe somehow with some people's selfish action, maybe it gives a different identity towards particular religion. But I think if you try to understand the religion at the very essential level, you could always find the more positive things that are very beneficial for the humankind, to develop human qualities and these in Buddhist teachings, it is all the education is needed. You can get all the education that is needed to really develop one's own human qualities, such as loving kindness and compassion, and deeper understandings, proper view, proper understanding, developing wisdom, and helping you to understand how to live in harmoniously in community, in family, in nationally, and globally. So in that case, I think it is important to see if people can understand, not in a sense of religion, but I would more say it more in a development of a spiritual quality in oneself, which every human being exists with.
Obi Chidi.
Hi. Conventionally, one would suppose that nuns are well trained in knowing how to serve their communities through compassionate action. What are the inadequacies of their traditional convent education that led you to found your organization?
I didn't understand. I'm sorry. Can you say it slowly? My English is not as good as it sounds.
Sorry about that. My question is, conventionally, one would suppose that nuns are well trained in knowing how to serve their communities through compassionate action.
Yeah.
What are the inadequacies of their traditional convent education that led you to found your organization?
Oh, okay. It is very much our own people who seem to still practice patriarchy very ignorantly. I cannot say that people in our society still practices patriarchy very intentionally, to saying that we must dominate women, but still people seem to be carrying them more ignorantly in a very cultural understanding, thinking that this is our culture, that how it has to be. So people has been practicing that, and I always felt that we women or nuns also have the same potentials as everybody else does. And if we nuns also could get an equal opportunity to develop our own potential in a more skillful way with the help of academic education, that would really be a great thing to do towards contributing towards our own community and helping. So because as a young nun, I always used to admire the monks so much, because they are always so well educated academically, and they're able to clear people's confusion. They were always able to understand and help people more practically. But at the same time, I always used to wonder why we nuns, there aren't any nuns that are able to do that. So actually, my own experience and my own desire to be able to receive a proper level of academic education actually made me really feel that establishment of a school for young nuns or the organization is very important. And I feel really blessed that I'm being able to fulfill the needs of this project by my own singing ability.
Elizabeth Fries.
Hi. I was wondering what have been the most significant obstacles that you have faced in developing and maintaining your school, and how you went about overcoming them.
Say that again. Sorry, the last part.
What the obstacles have been that you faced and how you overcame them.
I'm sorry. Oh. Overcoming them. Well, little obstacles are always there, but never to make me feel like, wow, that is a really big obstacle, and how am I going to solve it? It's just part of the process. As of course, for me to get to that door, I know that I have to walk these steps up there. So, most important thing is that I make sure that where the steps are, without just closing my eyes and jumping over. So. This is just the process. When you want to do something, there are certain processes that you have to go through. So never made me feel that, I have faced such an obstacle that has blocked me from my work. But as to describe some of the obstacle would be, my modern style, I should say. Because in our society, people think that nuns should behave in a certain way and should be doing this, shouldn't be doing that, shouldn't be saying this, shouldn't be wearing that, shouldn't be going there. So a lot of the conventional idea of our society towards Buddhist nun is actually sometimes is a little bit of problem in my own work, because sometimes it discourages me when people criticize us. Because I'm an open person, I'm a very open-minded person, and I believe in, like, if there are things that would help me to do my things better, why not I do it? For instance, for me, I've been the first Tibetan Buddhist nun to drive a car in Nepal. So, and I did receive some comments during those experience of driving saying, look, did you see that? That was a nun driving. And when I started to work on this project, I tried to understand that networking is very important. So, and I was trying to learn myself into more socializing things. So whenever I get invited to social gatherings, such as like evening gatherings, which sometimes it is called parties. So I go there, I try to meet people, I try to learn from others, but there are some conservative people and says, what is she doing here? She's not supposed to be here. She's supposed to be in the nunnery doing her prayers. What is she doing here? So, people, different point of views are there, but I knew what I was doing, and that strong determination in myself, my belief and my values never made me stop in what I did, what I was doing. So I always overcame through my own determination and my strength in strong belief in what I'm doing, and that what I'm doing is something good and important.
Deborah Ho.
Thank you so much for coming. What kind of challenges or barriers have you encountered as a woman while trying to achieve your goals?
Challenges. Wow. I have to really think about it. What challenges I did. Because I never really tried to analyze anything in a particular way that it is a challenge. But everything that I'm doing something new, or I'm trying to understand something new, maybe that is a challenge, or I don't know. But I always, every time I come across something new or different, I said I should try to understand that or learn about it, or why not see what it is? Because I didn't want it to be limited. I never want to limit my understanding up to what my own capacity of understanding. Sorry. So
I was wondering, has it been difficult as a woman to achieve some of your goals, whereas perhaps it would have been easier if you had been a man?
Easier or difficult? Well, okay, compared to some of the monks. For instance, like I have experienced when I went to Taiwan, that was long, long before I even started to sing. But and Hong Kong or Singapore, those are Asian countries. But some friends invited me over. But I could see the differences in the importance they give towards monks and nuns. So that's again maybe you call it, as you call it, the gender discrimination. I could see there that, and I can understand that also, because the monks usually they are very better knowledge, and they assume that they are better knowledge than the nuns. They would have more power to bless them than the nuns does. So maybe I felt that through my ignorance, or I don't know, but somehow I did feel some that. But and of course, some because of the culture that we have, sometimes we do feel some difficulties as being a woman. But that never has been able to make me stop in what I doing. And actually, to be honest, it has been the most inspiration, stronger encouragement in my work. The more I've faced any of these barriers or challenges, it made me feel like I have to do this, what I'm doing. It's very important. Not for myself maybe, but for others who go through that.
Jennifer Lee.
Hi, thanks for coming.
Hi.
It seems that the idea of nuns reciting Buddhist texts and chants without necessarily understanding them is troubling to you.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the reasons why you advocate education for nuns. With an audience that does not necessarily understand your chants, how do you convey your message? How does the use of chants in front of crowds of both believers and non-believers further your cause?
Yes, it is very true. The reason why, also one of the very strong reasons for me to establish a school for nuns and promote thinking that education for nuns is very important is also because that we all nuns, a lot of my friends nuns, they would definitely know how to read the texts, Tibetan texts, and conduct ritual ceremonies so well. They do it very well because they get to learn that. But a lot of the time, if you ask if you stop in middle and go and ask her what does this word means or what exactly it is for, they would be having very difficult time to explain that to you. So because a lot of the time, young girls who becomes nuns, they become nuns out of, only choice is to become a nun for them. For instance, it's very popular in our culture to have a lot of young nuns to become nun because most of the time it is pretty much an only alternative choice for them to get away from getting married to the man that their parent chooses them to get married. And especially these reasons are very popular among the rural areas, in the villages. And a lot of the times women become nuns because they suffer under a very abusive husband. So when they enter a nunnery, as I said, they get to learn how to read the text, conduct ritual ceremonies, but academic level, they're not helped. So they don't even know, many of them don't even know how to write their names properly. So I always felt like we must understand what we are doing, why we are doing it, and what's the benefit of it. And without that proper understanding, what we are doing is very like this. You don't have a ground. So I feel that is very important. As I call it, they said, they would say, I believe in Buddhism. And if you ask them questions at a deeper level, they would have little difficulty. So I want them to believe into their belief with the proper understanding and deeper understanding, as I would call it, earthquake proof, that any circumstances won't shake them up. Because lots of the time people say, oh, I pray to Buddha and he will protect me. And if you go through a difficult situation and you pray and you end up still being in the trouble and says, oh, I don't believe in him because I didn't get protection from him. So this kind of belief is not really correct. People should understand Buddhism or Buddha's teachings or Buddha. We say we take refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I'm sure a lot of you understand that Buddhist practitioner, they always say, I take refuge to Buddha, I take refuge to Dharma, I take refuge to Sangha. And the essential meaning is taking refuge towards Buddha is not towards the structure of a Buddha who is a golden statue or a wooden statue or anything like that. Buddha is a symbol of wisdom and clarity, something opposite to ignorance. That wisdom and purity, that's the quality we should take refuge towards. That is supposed to be believe in, not the structure of a Buddha as in golden statue, we think. And then thinking of taking refuge toward Dharma is the Buddhist teaching. Teachings are not just limited to the scripture that you read in the text. The essential quality of these teachings is supposed to be to develop proper understanding, proper view. So these are the qualities that we're supposed to take refuge towards in a proper sense of taking refuge, not just towards the text and taking refuge towards Sangha doesn't mean that taking refuge to monks and nuns only. It's a symbol of a community who lives harmoniously and who develops loving kindness and understanding towards each other, how they learn to live together peacefully and happily and harmoniously. So the proper understanding and education, that's why I think the education is very important, because modern education, academic education helps us to develop our intellectual capacity very helpfully. And then spiritual education also, on the other hand, is very important because it helps us to really develop our spiritual quality, which helps us to, as the development of intellectual capacity helps us to live our life more skillfully, more smartly, intelligently. On the other hand, spiritual development helps us to live our life more meaningfully and wisely. So in that sense, I think it's very important to have both education.
Claire Villaverde.
Good afternoon. You have said that there is potential to maintain tradition and adopt the modernization of the world in one's lifestyle. However, I was curious as to whether there have been times in your life when these two schools of thought have clashed, and, if so, how you have gone about harmonizing them.
My appearance and as being called a Tibetan Buddhist nuns, people think this is something very old traditional things, but I think Buddhist teachings can be very, very modern, be able to live up to very modern world, which thinking about the very essential values, which is still at the modern time is considered valuable. And modernization, in a sense, I don't mean like hang out, like in another sense, but being open, flexible towards new things, and being smart to use these modern equipments, as for instance, I would say. So I'm considered modern in a way because I use cell phone, I use computer, and I use automobiles, driving, and my openness to in socializing way. Something when I do these things, people think, oh, I'm a modern nun. But I do these things to make my work essential, what I'm doing, where I believe is my essential values, is what I think is my responsibility, since I have the potential to do something. So I don't know if it really clashes for myself, but it seemed to be clashing some for people who think a little conservatively for others. And I'm sorry, I haven't been able to answer I forgot to answer that. My music, actually, how it connects and how I can reach other people is, you see, there are certain time, generally, a lot of the time we think that we have to understand the language towards each other. But there is a common language we all humans share, is our feelings and energy. We don't need language to understand that. For instance, if I show you a smile, you don't need to understand it through a language, that one. If I show you angry face. So when I sing it from my deep down, my heart. And that's most important, which through that I feel that I can connect to people. And most of the time I get reviews from the audience saying that, oh, I didn't understand what the lyrics were, but it went right through my heart. So that's important. The real thing was getting there. So I think it is not always important to have language to really understand each other. It's a lot of the time you can really communicate without saying a word to each other, but through your feeling and your expression, the energy you create from your emotions. And yeah, when you enter a group, towards a group, if you can immediately feel it, whether you are accepted or not, without even having to hear a word from them. So there is a language there that you can communicate through. Yeah.
Anna Portnoy, on behalf of a student.
Thank you for being here. We read today about your views on living with both tradition and modernity. We're quite familiar with the virtues of modernity. For example, in this class, we use the tools of modernity to post discussion comments online. But many of us are less grounded in tradition. I wonder if you could speak to us about your own tradition. Specifically, which single aspect of your own tradition might be most important for living in the modern world?
Well, the most important thing is not to lose touch of yourself, not to get carried away by the outer pressures. And, well, can you repeat that question again? I'm sorry, I get carried away.
really I'm interested in if you could just speak about your tradition in Buddhism, and if there's one aspect of Buddhism that you could share with us that would be important for maybe all of the people here in this classroom in living in a modern world.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. That is, of course, understand as very common nature we all human beings share. Regardless of differences in our culture, regardless of differences in our languages, we all share very common nature and desire is to be happy. And that is a very simple thing which we often can easily say, oh, everybody knows that. But we forget how, when we try to survive in our day-to-day life, we seem to be getting carried away with the pressure of the modern world. For instance, a lot of the time I realize that people in the West, they have so much pressure and competition is there in their academic achievement. They study, they learn, and all they think is, okay, degree. Good degrees means good job. Good job means good money. Good money means good house and luxury and life. So there is this competition there, I feel. Forgive me if I'm wrong, really. Maybe it's not always necessary to be right for everyone, but more majority, I feel that when I talk to a lot of the students. From my point of view, education is something that will help you to really build up your understanding capacity and your wisdom, which will help us to understand others. As you, of course, first is important to understand yourself, as well as to be able to understand others in a very simple form. As you don't like to be harmed, as you don't like to be, discriminated, it's very clear that the other one doesn't like to go through that same feeling. And that's very simple, but yet a lot of the time we forget that. So in my daily practice as my culture or my cultural value or my practice, which I actually think it is pretty much of my own spiritual practice, is that not always to make sure that I never forget we all have potential not only to experience our own oneself happiness, but we have the potential to bring that same happiness for others too. And trying to do whatever you can do with that understanding. And I may not be able to really give you a good answer in a very academic level, nice sentences, but whatever I'm trying to say is something that out of my heart, and which I try to live every day in my life. And all I say in a very simple form is every day I wake up, my best prayer is that I pray that every thought comes in my mind, may those thoughts be thoughts to bring happiness to make other people happy, not only oneself. And may every word that comes out of my mouth, may those words be words to make others happy and satisfied, and not only oneself. And every action that is taken by my body, may those actions be action to really make others happy, not only oneself. So that is my prayer, and everything I try to do, that is the main mindfulness, what I try to practice is that I make sure that I don't hurt anybody. If I can help, that's great. If not, at least not to harm, which is very much of a Buddhist principle. And of course, to try to understand the nature of your own mind.
Nate Bernhard.
Hi. Kate Botham writes that during your spiritual meditations in Cho, you recite chants designed to cut through ego clinging.
Yeah.
Well, Cambridge, Massachusetts has been described as the most self-congratulatory place in the world. Could you share with us some of the techniques and principles we should keep in mind for keeping our egos in check?
Kate, can you help me out again? Okay. Well, ego usually develops when there's fear. Fear of losing something. From very gross level of fear to very subtle level of fear. It is the fear that really develops our ego. So once you understand that, then I'm sure you are smart enough or intelligent enough to figure out how you want to deal with that. Did I get it? I mean, did that make sense? Okay.
Let me just mention a few practicalities before we go further. Ani Choying has generously agreed to stay after 4 for a discussion with a smaller group. If anyone would like to stick around, we will break at 4 for those of you who have other classes. We also have some CDs and necklaces from Nepal, and if anyone would like one, any funds raised through those will go directly to the school. And then if you're interested in joining the 2 new sections, a reminder that we'll be dealing with that. Next question from Laura Beth Bug.
Thank you, Ani Choying. Can you tell us a little bit about how you take care of yourself while you're serving everyone else? One thing we haven't done in this course is really hear from the people who come to speak to us about how they replenish their souls, their bodies, so that they are able to give to others. And I know you said that you do everything so that you can bring happiness to others, but how do you take care of yourself so that you're able to do that?
First of all, I really don't. It sounds more like that I have a job to do, but I really don't take this as a job to do, which pays me or anything like. It is pretty much of my own spiritual practice. So I try to practice on it as much as possible without checking if somebody's giving me or not, or whether I'm getting it from them or not, what I want or anything like that. I just try to make sure that what I'm doing is whether it's doing properly or sincerely or with full effort. That's important. And taking care of myself, I very honestly, as I said, we all share a very common desire is to be happy. When I do this work, I feel a sense of such a satisfaction in myself that I have a meaningful life. When as we desire for happiness, we all really make a lot of effort to achieve that happiness. And a lot of the time we forget whether our effort towards achieving that happiness is being meaningful or not. But I feel really, really fortunate that every single effort that I try to make is being meaningful, and my potential is being utilized in a very proper way. So I feel really blessed with that. I hope I understood you.
I forgot one other announcement. There's a possibility for some of you to come to Ani Choying's school as volunteers with room and board provided, and to teach secular Western academic subjects for a number of months there. If you're interested in learning more about that possibility, we have a sign-up sheet afterwards. We have time for another question.
Hi. The patriarchy that you talk about in Buddhist culture, particularly in Tibet, seems to be kind of general in religion. And I was wondering, what do you think about women who don't know why they should continue to participate in religions that perpetuate this kind of patriarchy?
I think it's not really the religion, it's the culture that has been it's, as you can call it, man-made culture. So as I explained before, we human are never perfect. So sometimes we end up making some policies which really doesn't seem to be working. But as we are a human being, we have the intelligence to understand and then analyze that and see what you want. But it's all, I think it all depends on individual level of how strong ignorance you are covered with, or how much you're ignorantly willing to accept that. But if you intelligently try to understand the situation, and if you realize that there is something going not correctly, it's up to you whether you want to take a step to do something about it or not. So as myself, I felt that, okay, there is a difference is being created, and I realized that we nuns also have potential to contribute as equally as monks does, and I just try to do something to help my friends to realize that potential and nurture that potential in more skillful way with the help of academic education, and be part of the service to this community. So instead of, I think, really saying, oh, they didn't do this, this is something going wrong here, instead of just blaming others, why not we just try to understand that ourselves and put effort, instead of wasting that particular energy and effort blaming others for not doing it, why not we do it? We start here, you know. So I did that. I felt that it's more meaningful to do it myself rather than blaming others. Maybe nobody would hear your voice. If you do it yourself, action can be very clear. There's a saying in a small proverb in my brochure that I have said is, if I tell you my dream, as you would explain about the patriarchy problem, you might forget it. But if I act on my dream, perhaps you might remember it. But if I involve you in my dream, it'll become your dream too. So instead of just wasting energy on talking and blaming others for not happening things, why not we take one step ourselves? And then slowly people will join, as in my project. I have a lot of people now slowly joining me together. So there should be somebody to start it, I think. You have to have that courage. Just being able to address the problem is not enough. Having the courage to do something for it, it's always nice.
Ani Choying Drolma, for giving us a model of wisdom, gentleness, and strength. We thank you.
And once again, I really, really feel very privileged to be with all of you who are very intelligent people. So thank you very much.